Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you another video. All right, so the day after the cat trade, I had some things to say that I didn't mention last night. I don't know if they'll come to mind right now, but we'll just go with it. Almost done with my workout, but I feel like taking a break. So the one thing that I'm listening to in regards to everybody who's talking about this trade is that they don't really like to trade for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think the commentary I can provide today is just a clarification for what I look for in certain things. When it comes to what's going on the basketball floor, that's only one portion of the entire pie for what I'm looking for. A lot of people, they're basketball based as it pertains to the sport itself. If it don't work for the team, if it doesn't work for the style of play that they expect to see on the floor, if it's clunky, bad trade, period. I'm looking at a little more than that as it pertains to what's good for the future of the organization. A lot of the times, contracts, how they match up, whether or not a player can be retraded. Because my point of view on whether or not it's a good trade for this particular situation is about the value returning to Minnesota, which is why I think they got the better end of the trade. I do think that New York is happy with making that trade, but I don't think that they won the trade. But I also agree with those who are focused on the basketball floor when they say that they don't love Julius Randle with this unit. I said last night that I think it's a damn good chance that Minnesota looks to trade Julius Randle rather soon, because they're probably not going to like Julius Randle's fit there. They're probably not going to like his approach to the game as it pertains to him and Anthony Edwards. I have questions about whether or not they're going to even be able to coexist out there. Style of play be damned. Julius is an alpha that can't necessarily deliver on alpha production. He can put up big stats, but can he play well enough when it matters most, or is he going to be the guy that does too much down the stretch of a basketball game, which he's proven time and time again that he can be that guy. You know what I mean? Who Anthony Edwards on the team? Yeah, that's cool, but I'm gonna take the last shot though, and I'm gonna break it. Like, he has that in him. So when you consider who would you rather have for the Minnesota Timberwolves, call Anthony Towns. And if you're looking at it through that lens, then I agree with you. You know what I mean? Like, literally. For those who don't really love Julius on the Minnesota Timberwolves, I don't love Julius on the Minnesota Timberwolves. I love the idea that Julius can become a player that the Minnesota Timberwolves can retrade for maybe more than what they traded him away for, given the fact that Karl Anthony Towns is just one player for one, and two, on a hell of a contract that I don't really love for the Minnesota Timberwolves based on the Rudy Gobert trade that ultimately had them mortgaging pretty much everything they had in the future until 2030 something. So for me, it's like they needed to diversify their asset class to provide themselves more flexibility and a cushion for the evaporation of assets that have already been sent to Utah for Rudy, and the fact that Rudy probably not going to be retraded for anything. You ain't going to be able to get much for Rudy. I don't think he garners too much on the market. So that's already so much of their pie, so to speak, in terms of their assets being evaporated into nothing. They got to try to recoup that. And I think they're doing a really good job around what it is they can control of making sure that they have future assets. I think they've done a really good job. So this was a trade that allowed for that. Did it help them in this quest for a championship with this unit? No. And if that's what you're looking at, if that's the measure from which this is a good or bad trade, no, I don't love this trade for that. For the sport of basketball and the Minnesota Timberwolves' expectations for winning a championship, nah, this ain't a good trade. Nah. Karl Anthony Towns is a piece that fit better than Julius Randle's expected to. He's a better player than Julius Randle. And if you're a championship caliber team, which I believe they were, I told y'all yesterday I thought they were one of the best teams in the Western Conference, with the most talented team they've had since probably their inception, to be honest with you. Maybe since they went to the Western Conference Finals back when the Lakers was playing or something like that. That's the best team that they've had. Trading away Karl Anthony Towns ends that for me. But I look at it from a standpoint of the franchise and what they need going forward for many years to come, not just this upcoming season. And for that, it's a trade that I think provides them multiple assets that can eventually be retraded for more than what Karl Anthony Towns ultimately would have been for them on the contract he's on, especially $212 million or something like that for the next 4 years. With him missing games last year, them being bad the majority of the time he's been on the team, you know, Some of the things that have happened on the court, I think, prove that he probably needs a big man next to him to thrive in the Western Conference, which is why they did so much to get Rudy Gobert. I just don't think that Karl Anthony Towns is the greatest investment for that situation, long term, at all. And so I was on board yesterday before the trade happened. I made a video talking about that. I encourage you guys to check out my NBA chat video yesterday. I was saying that I think it's a decent chance trading Karl Anthony Towns might be in a better favor for the Minnesota Timberwolves, so that they could diversify what he's worth into more parts, more pieces that can be either kept or retraded. So that's what they did. That is exactly what they did. And for that, with my eyes on the bigger picture for the future of their franchise, it's a trade that's good. It's a good trade. I'm not going to say it's an amazing trade, but it's a good trade for that purpose. So that's what I wanted to try to clarify a bit. Dante DiVincenzo is a player who I think if he's given more minutes, given a starting shooting guard position, he can rise his level of expectations for what he can do individually. I think he's ready to step into being a real starter in this league. I don't know if he has all-star upside, but he's a damn good starter from here on out. Somebody that is proven to hit big shots, somebody's proven who can score 30 points in the NBA. I don't think he's just a regular role guy coming off the bench anymore. I think he's lived up to his draft positioning. I think he was like midway in the draft, like maybe 5 years ago or something like that. I don't remember, maybe a lottery pick. I don't remember exactly where he was drafted. Somewhere between like 8 and 20 in a random draft about 6 years ago, 5 years ago. And he's turned into what you would hope he would turn into when Milwaukee took him. So yeah, I like the piece. I like the Dante DiVincenzo piece a lot, especially since he's on a fantastic contract. I think he's only making like $11-12 million a year. That's like one of the best contracts in the league. So for a team like Minnesota who's giving away so much, that's like equivalent to the Lakers having Austin Reeves' contract. Given that we're a team that's mortgaged so much, you need a player with such an amazing contract on your books being able to produce a lot, so that you can put more stuff next to it that can ultimately make you a good team, a tougher team, a more dangerous basketball club. So for me, Julius Randle isn't really the catch that makes you excited about the trade. It's Dante DiVincenzo in the first round pick. Now it's a top 13 protected first round pick from the Detroit Pistons. I don't remember which year it is. That's very important though. I don't think I ever found out what year it is. But you don't expect the Detroit Pistons to be good at all this year. Maybe in the future, if this is like a 27, 28, 29 pick, something like that, maybe you think that the core of the Detroit Pistons, coupled with the ability to retrade some of those guys as they age a little, may make it so that they're a pretty solid team in the future, maybe even a playoff team 3-4 years from now. So that may not be a very good pick either way. But given that it's top 13 protected, you kind of hope that they're not so bad so that they don't get a lottery pick, as to which you don't touch it. But in the top, if they have like a decent play-in tournament year, whatever the pick is, then you automatically get that pick, and that's a pretty good thing. So not the greatest first-round pick to acquire before a team that doesn't have any picks, who just gave away another first-rounder to get Dillingham. You need any first-rounders you can get. And you probably won't draft that pick. You probably will trade that pick later on. If that's your option. You could probably see that thing moving again at some point. So I personally think that I would have waited to do this, see if Minnesota can win a championship this year, because I think they're in the mix, before making this trade. And I'm with everybody else. I just don't see Julius Randle as a piece that makes the Minnesota Timberwolves better. I don't see them getting back to the Western Conference semifinals this year, or the finals. Where did they go? Yeah, they got to the finals, Western Conference finals last year. I don't see them repeating that, as to where I thought they were a fantastic bet to repeat that with Karl. So for that reason, I definitely notch off some of that trade being a good trade, because it's like, the logic is, if you're so close to a championship, why are you toying with stuff? You could very easily wait. Karl Anthony Towns, with 4 years left on his deal, you could probably get that same trade next year. That's what I could argue. Next offseason, after Minnesota does whatever they're going to do, New York is probably still going to want Karl Anthony Towns They're probably still willing to throw into that exact same pick, depending on if it drafts this year or not, which I don't know. I have no idea. But assuming that pick is further down the road, they'll probably give you that same pick, probably give you that same Dante DiVincenzo contract, and definitely looking to move on from Julius Randle a year from now. You can make that same trade next summer, when you know for a fact what the exhaustion of this particular unit could have been. So that's my thing, but I figured maybe they didn't want to take any risk of Karl Anthony Towns going down with an injury and then having that contract stuck on their books any longer, with, you know, him only paying like, what, 30, 40 games last year or something like that. I don't think they wanted the risk. I think they were eager to move on from that thing and diversify it. But see, here's the thing. One of the things that make this a good trade or not a good trade for me with the Minnesota Timberwolves is whether or not Julius Randle is handled properly. If they let Julius walk, I don't know that this trade looks as good to me. If for some reason they don't win a championship, which nobody expects them to at this point, and then Julius Randle opts out of his contract and signs with, say, the Heat or somebody, do I love this trade anymore? I don't think so. From what I understand, he is up for a 4-year extension at like $181 million. He does have an opt-in for this season, though. This upcoming offseason, he can opt into his contract. Assuming he plays well enough to get out of there, he's probably going to want a bigger payday than what they're going to ultimately want to give him. Do they want to pay him $181 if that extension is something that he ultimately is asking for? Do they expect he's going to want to stay there? Because this is somebody who's used to playing in big markets. LA, New York, New Orleans. I don't know that Minnesota is where he's going to want to be. So, like I said, I totally see them trading him probably as soon as he's eligible to be traded. Now, when that is, I don't know. I don't know if he's able to be traded this year or not. If he's able to be traded at the deadline or not, I'm just not certain. But I would imagine as soon as they're able to trade him, they're going to field offers for Julius Randle. He ain't going to be in Minnesota for long, unless they are just winning out of control. Because I don't believe Minnesota's going to want to pay him that. I don't believe so. But they better be careful, because if you find out that you don't want to repay him, and then you can't get nobody else to come up there to Minnesota, you're going to have some trouble. Because at least you had Karl Anthony Towns on a couple of years. He's a flagship player, I guess that's what you call it, a legacy guy who's been in your team since he was drafted. You gave him up for a guy that you probably don't want to re-sign. Are you sure you're going to be able to get another star to play with Anthony Edwards? Or are you going to be overpaying for role players to make up for the fact that you couldn't? And what's your ceiling at that point? That's why I think it's important that they make a decision with Julius Randle. And if they're open to paying him 4 years, $181, I personally don't like that contract. I don't like that at all. The fit is weird. I'm not in love with Julius Randle as a player, personally. And that's coming from somebody who loved Julius as a Laker. I mean, he was our guy. And I hated that we let him walk for nothing. And I do believe in him as an all-star. He's a proven real guy. But I just don't think his ceiling makes the Timberwolves a champion. I don't think so. Especially with him coming off the shoulder. I don't know if there's going to be reoccurring problems there. I don't know. But I've never been a super fan of a contending Julius Randle situation. If we're a regular team like the Toronto Raptors or something like that, and we want to be in the playoffs, and you know, that's great. But if you're actually relying upon him to be the second star on your team scoring the ball, I don't love that situation if you're trying to win a championship. And that's exactly the role he's in right now with the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is not great. It's not great. That's not something that's not the running mate I would put next to Anthony Edwards for the next 4 years. Not if I have a choice. No. So now it's going to be about, in my humble opinion, if they're able to move Julius Randle at the deadline, doing so. Because I don't think there's a win letting him walk, and I don't think there's a win giving him that extension. If he opts in, cool. You got to trade him next year at the deadline. You know, if he doesn't like what he sees on the market and he decides to use his player option, you had better move him before he walks for nothing, or before you got to pay him that trash. That's how it is. That's how it has to be, man. Especially in this multi-apron era, you can't afford to have contracts that you're not in love with, man. You just can't. That's one of the reasons why they moved on from Karl. Because that contract don't look that good right now. $212 million for him? They ain't look that great. Plus, from what I understand, they wanted to give an extension to Nas Reed. Nas Reed, for me, even more so makes Julius expendable. If I'm the Timberwolves, I don't necessarily need to trade Carl for a big. Because Nas Reed is ready to take a starting position in this league, just like Dante DiVincenzo probably is. So if I'm the Minnesota Timberwolves, I might trade Julius Randle for a non-big. I might. And let Nas Reed be my starting power forward from here on out. And then address maybe the shooting small forward position or something like that. I don't know. But the point is they're not strangleheld to needing a big right now, in my opinion. Now, that's not because Nas is good enough to where he can play the 5 or the 4. And he stretches the floor more consistently than Julius. Even though I made the argument yesterday that Julius is a better shooter than people are saying he is. Because he had that 1 year with New York where he shot like 42% or something like that. So he can shoot. He's not Carl, but who is, right? And so the spacing could be a little tricky. The sharing of the basketball could be a little tricky. Julius is more than capable of sharing the ball, but that's not his. It doesn't equate to fluid ball movement. It equates to him driving and kicking. And that's exactly what you want Anthony Edwards to have the option of being able to do as much as he wants to do it. And I can argue and have been arguing that Rob Dillingham is also another guy who's going to look to do things with the ball in his hands. So now you went from having one ball handler in Anthony Edwards to potentially 3 ball handlers with Dilly and Juju. So for me, now you got a situation where you gotta hope that Dilly and Juju are willing to defer to Edwards at the usage necessary for Edwards to be his best self. And I think you're asking too much of Julius, given the fact that he's a ball dominant player, looking to do things himself. So I don't love the fit. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I love the fit. I like Julius Randle if I can retrade him right away. Basically, within the next 6 months, I'm moving him. I'm sending him somewhere. Somewhere that probably would be willing to give me even more diversified stuff. I traded Karl Anthony Towns for 3 things. I'm going to try to trade Julius Randle for 2 things. Because that's how you multiply in regards to your value. You got to continue to diversify your value if you're a Minnesota Timberwolves. So that's kind of how I look at it, man. I don't know where he's going, but I personally, if I'm the owner of the Minnesota Timberwolves, A-Rod and then the team or whoever's there, at 181 4 years, I'm not giving that to Julius for my squad. No, that's going to be somebody else. So that's really the point of view I wanted to bring to this video, man. I just feel like I wanted to clarify that I look for other things to determine my thought on whether or not a trade is good or not. I'm not looking at does it fit on the basketball floor. I'm looking at that as one of many things, but not even the major thing. The major thing is for the future of my franchise and for the direction that the team needs to go going forward, looking at what we have, did we make a deal that makes us richer? And the answer is yes. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves made them a deal that made them cap richer, cap more flexible, and more able to maneuver responsibly through this tight window that is our apron era we're in. So that's what it is, man. They got a lot more flexible than they needed to. Now it doesn't hurt as much if Rudy Gobert isn't traded for nothing but a second-round pick or something. It still hurts like hell, but you've helped yourself cushion the blow of stuff evaporating into nothingness. And you put yourself in a position to re-sign and give a bigger role to Nas Reed. And I think Dante DiVincenzo is going to be a hell of a player for the Minnesota Timberwolves right away. He's going to help a lot. I think his role is going to be as big with the Timberwolves as it's been anywhere. And you should be excited about that opportunity, man. I think he should be excited about that opportunity. So, from what I understand, another thing that was talked about is that Dante maybe wasn't excited about being second fiddle to his college teammate Bridges. He liked the idea of playing with those guys, but moving on from his piece probably allowed for him to be in a situation where he's going to play more. That's only a problem because of Thibodeau, you guys. That's the commentary that I haven't heard anybody say. Dante DiVincenzo probably has no problem coming off the bench for all the other teams in the league. The problem is coming off the bench for the Knicks means you're not playing at all. Why? Because Thibodeau played all his starters 48 damn minutes. He'll never play his bench. Dante know that. He played on this team last year. So he know his minutes is going to be cut in half, if not cut even more so than that, off the notion that Tibbs is going to run with them starters all game, all night. You're going to be waiting for somebody to get hurt for you to get the minutes that he needs in order to continue to play up to the level he's been playing. So while the idea of being a Villanova buddy on the Knicks is cute, not if you're only going to be getting like 15 minutes a game, because Thibodeau's not sane in regards to playing his bench. That's only a problem because of Tibbs, y'all. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that, man. I hope everybody's enjoying my video. I'm going to finish my workout, eat some food. My name is BDO44. Thank you all for watching. I'm out.